Hey everyone, it's been a while. I'm not even going to try to edit this video, but I figured I'd give you some life updates and then talk about something that I've been thinking about Dresden Files related for a while. So I haven't posted in a while, and I probably won't post very much until after Halloween, and that's because I'm taking the professional engineering exam again. I failed by the skin of my teeth last year, and now I am set to make this test not be a problem in my life anymore. So I am mostly studying things like valves and electrical signals and physics and math and, stuff that I would much rather leave for my working hours and then get to read more Dresden Files and make more content for y'all. But unfortunately, knowing all this mathy stuff is what pays my bills, and I really like being able to eat and pay my mortgage and all that jazz, so that has to come first. I'm sorry, things will get better. Until that does get better though, I might be able to post some if I don't have to spend hours editing and putting on makeup and worrying about lighting. So I'll probably just make some lazy content, and in the meantime, tell me in the comments down below if you like that kind of content. And if you do, and I've just been trying way too hard lately, then I will dial back and try to make more content. But I was reading Changes, and I got to talk to some of my friends at Fantasy Files podcast. I will link them down in the description below. They're awesome. I always have a good time when I'm talking to them. But someone that I've been thinking a lot about in the Dresden Files universe is Martin. And he is a character that I really despised when I first met him in the series. When I was reading, I was like, okay, here's this super average guy who for some reason is getting to spend time with Susan when Susan should be with Harry. And I later realized that the reason I thought that is because this entire series was from Harry's perspective. Harry sees Martin as being competition, like a potential love interest for Susan when he can't have her and he's in love with her. And he's very much distracted by that when Martin is just so much more. And we really don't figure that out until we get to Changes. Because in the beginning of Changes, when Harry is sort of sulking in the back seat, because one, he just found out he has a kid and that's sort of like life-changing and stuff. And two, Martin is there, and Martin is the last person that he wants to see. Even though he knows that the supernatural stuff is going on and things are dangerous and he needs to be able to have as many allies as possible, he still locks Martin out when he has to talk to Susan, which was hilarious to me. But we get to sort of have this recap at the beginning of the book where Martin is going over his sort of role, and we're hearing all of this from Harry's perspective, but Martin doesn't really try to hide anything. He definitely interfered in the duel between Ortega and Dresden, and he didn't really care if he broke the rules or if he ended up being a bad ally and got Dresden hurt or worse in that. He just wanted to be able to take out Ortega and to take out the vampires that had messed up his life. Now, later we find out that the situation is way more complicated than that, but it seems like people on both sides of the aisle were cheating. And I think that this sort of goes back to the whole thing in the Dresden Files verse that we're playing the long game here. And even if it's not super obvious in the moment, things sort of make sense at the end. Later on, we have that big, like, what the hell moment where Martin betrays Susan and is like, my king, I have served you, blah, blah, blah. I have done these things. I have told the vampires where the Fellowship of St. Giles are, and they are getting decimated now. Aren't I a good traitor? And he does that on purpose because it pisses Dresden off and gets Dresden to the place where he needs to be able to take Susan out in order to use the bloodline curse to take everybody else out. And my blood was boiling. I think everybody who has read Changes has had their blood boil at this point in the story. And then when we get to sort of the soul gaze thing that happens right before Harry takes Martin out, we see that Martin had started out as this guy who wanted to gain power through the Red Court, infiltrated the Fellowship of St. Giles. And if I'm getting any of this wrong, like, tell me in the comments down below and we'll have a discussion because that's fun. But Martin basically tells his story like through his eyes, like literally. And Harry finally realizes that Martin realized that what he was doing was wrong and decided to switch sides to the good guy. But Martin also knows that he's just a man. And we've known that. Like, Harry has said that Martin is just a man and has been like, Susan, why are you hanging out with this guy when you could hang out with me? I'm way more cool, etc., etc. Or at least like said that in his mind and gotten really, really jealous, you know? But Martin changing sides seems like he's betraying Dresden and Susan, but he's actually giving them the opportunity and the power to take out the entire Red Court at once, just by doing something that they both really don't want to do. Of course, Susan doesn't want to sacrifice herself to save her daughter, but of course she does, and Harry doesn't want to end the love of his life, but he does. God forgive him. But Martin, being a man and just being a simple man, didn't really have that much of a choice. He had to be opportunistic. He had to take the shots when he could get them. He had to be able to take out the Red Court when the opportunity presented itself. And that's what he did. And he knew that if he didn't take out the Red Court this time, he needed to be able to survive to fight another day. And in that way, Martin died doing the right thing, which, as we all know, is what's on Dresden's tombstone in Graceland. And that just tells me that Martin is this character that represents the everyman. And that just kind of blows my mind, because Martin is what Dresden might end up having to be later on in the series. Now, I don't know how it's going to end. I know Harry's had to do really, really hard things in order to protect the people that he cares about and to be able to find the means to the end, as it were. And he's done horrible things for the right reasons. But I think that Martin, in this case, is sort of showing us what Dresden is going to end up becoming. Dresden could end up becoming the bad guy, but for the complete right reasons. Dresden could end up making a lot of people hate him in the process. And Dresden could also make himself become someone who has to deal with a fate that he never even wanted to do, and to sacrifice himself and any sort of opportunity to have a good life with the people that he loves. And I think that that's really important to keep in mind as we go to the end of the series.